What is up, guys? How are we doing? Welcome back to another episode of the Jedi In Exile. Today we are carrying on our series of watching trailers and then reviewing movies. So we've watched the trailer. You can catch that video. It would have come out a few days ago for Rogue One and our reaction to the trailer. Today we're going to get down and into the nitty gritty of what we thought of the movie, what we liked, what we didn't like, all of that good stuff. Brian, start me off, mate. Obviously, this one split some fans, right? So
Yeah,
talk to me.
because so first thing to say, this yes is a Star Wars movie. So the first thing we've got to point out, this is the first film that was made that wasn't about the Skywalkers. So it's not part of the Skywalker Saga. So because that's where it's not like Star Wars, then The Force Awakens, or it's Rogue One, a Star Wars story. So they branded it very differently. And as we spoke about in the reaction video to the trailer, it's very much a war movie set in the Star Wars universe. So this film directly precedes A New Hope. Um, I have to say, my summary, I really liked it. Really, really liked it. It's really nice that, you know, the director and the production team, they really did the small stuff of like different we just get such a feeling from A New Hope. Like I was watching it, you see like the classic things like the X-Wings, you've got the Red Squadron, Blue Squadron, Gold Squadron, you see the ships from the Rebellion, we see like Bail Organa, so it's a throwback to the prequel films. We see Mon Mothma. Like there's just so much that is in this movie that as a a really big Star Wars fan, so many like almost Easter eggs in there, and you're like, oh, that's so cool. But it's also a really good standalone movie, and I think it's really important to say that you could just watch that. I remember going to the cinema with my wife, my brother-in-law, and sister-in-law. Brother and sister-in-law aren't really into Star Wars, but it wasn't just there's a load of lightsabers around. There was almost no lightsabers. This wasn't a conventional Star Wars film, and they really enjoyed it just as a standalone movie. Just a really because it did what I mean any film should do, but obviously a lot of films now are set within like trilogies or like a Marvel universe. This film had a beginning, a middle, and very much an end, and that was that. Very much so. I've actually thought it was a really, really good movie, good storyline, good effects, good characters. Yeah, I thought it was really great.
So I'm kind of, I guess maybe on the flip side of that, and I'll come back to it at the end and talk to you about how I see the movie now. But the first time I saw this, I got really hyped to go and see this, then didn't get an opportunity to go and see it in the cinema, which probably was my first mistake, I reckon, because obviously you don't get the full experience. But I remember buying this, pre-ordering it on Blu-ray when it became available, and sitting down one afternoon to watch it. And I'll be honest, I really struggled first watch, in that I found myself kind of, I'm going to use the phrase getting bored. Don't know if that's the right way to kind of to say it. Felt very difficult to get invested in it, and I felt my attention wandering a little bit. And then what I would get is little snippets of Star Wars or traditional Star Wars that would pull me back. So I would kind of get 10 minutes or so of something else going on, and then you'd be like, oh, Stormtroopers, it is Star Wars, and then kind of 10 minutes of something else, and then oh, TIE fighters, it is Star Wars, all of that sort of stuff, which I really struggled with. I would say that I've gone back and rewatched this a handful of times, and every time I've watched it, it's got better, for me, because I've noticed more things. I've actually given it more of a
Really well layered.
chance.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I would agree with you. It's those little Easter eggs, those little bits. I think obviously we were introduced to Jin, who I didn't mind as a character. Some people really, really hated on her, I'll be honest.
Yeah, I think she could be a little bit 50-50 as a character, and I understand that. Um, because I feel like she's almost like Luke in A New Hope, where everybody just takes whatever he says so seriously when he's actually got no like experience or background in anything. Like you don't really get a lot of background on Jin, except from right at the start. Obviously, she Saw Gerrera finds her after her mum's been killed and dad's been taken by the Imperials, and then you get nothing. But she's then in a Imperial labor camp, and there's no like hint of like what she's been doing or what she's done before that. So I feel like we are just throwing a main character in. Um, but I think her development over the film is okay. Don't think
Well,
she's the best character. Don't think she's the worst character.
I think she's got for me she's got kind of echoes of Han to her, in that when she
Mm.
joins up initially it's for quite a selfish reason, and then as it kind of rolls through, it becomes more about the bigger picture and the bigger cause than just her selfish reasons, which is
Right.
kind of what we got from Han right throughout the original trilogy. We got the kind of I'm doing it because it's a paycheck, and then we kind of got actually I believe in the cause a little bit and I care about people.
Yeah, yeah.
um,
Yeah, I mean, I really liked the other characters that were introduced. It's like this motley crew. Um, so we had like Cassian, Andor,
yeah.
who, for those watching on YouTube, you can see him on the screen there, because he's like this. I like this film in one way because it portrayed, and they obviously did this with Saw Gerrera as well, portrayed that not everybody in the Rebel Alliance is, although they're fighting the cause, you could see them as terrorists. So I know Saw Gerrera is like even extreme for the Rebel Alliance, but Cassian Andor, he goes on this big emotional rant about how he's killed a lot of people. You see his first scene, he kills a friend of his, and it's like all the greater good. But I think it painted this picture that the rebels aren't like completely morally, like their moral compass doesn't point due north. It's like slightly off.
Yeah, and I think that this is where that really epitomizes what you said at the start, which is that yes, it's a Star Wars movie, but actually it's more a war movie set in the Star Wars universe. You could lift and shift this plot and move it into World War Two, and it works. You know, move it into a
Very
modern.
much like Vietnam, isn't it? Which we know George Lucas based the Rebel Alliance on.
Yeah, exactly. And I think you're right. The characters really kind of backed that up a little bit and made it. We kind of got more. This movie was more about the rebellion than anything else. As much as Jin's your main character and stuff, we really got an insight into um, kind of the rebellion and the layers behind just Mon Mothma and the guys at the top, and that kind
Yeah.
of inner circle that we see in the original trilogy.
Yeah, I really liked the thing, like, for me, and again, it goes back to the throwback to A New Hope. I like that the Rebel base is on Yavin 4, so we see a lot more of that. It's like, and this is really weird to explain, but it's almost like the old school A New Hope graphics of like the Death Star plans was like really basic, and obviously they could have made that a lot more technologically advanced, but they still kept that old school, all the displays inside Yavin 4 inside the temple, all the computers and electronics were like the same kind of old school,
So
even though it's a newer film. I thought it did seem like in the time of A New Hope. They did that really well.
the director, there's a really famous like thing, excuse me, where a bunch of the cast came out and said that the director told them all to grow mustaches and all of that kind of stuff to give it a 70s feel, to
Yeah,
make it feel like it, even though it was using modern technology and like, so the quality is better and all, and the computer graphics and all the CGI and stuff is like massively better. The actual film feels like it's of the same era as the original trilogy,
yeah.
which
I mean, I think that worked really, really well.
yeah, no, totally agree. Um, and they stuck to, and this is something that I guess we were chatting about very briefly before we came on. We stuck to that age old Star Wars kind of equation, successful equation of introducing a lovable droid to the situation.
Like a droid sidekick that's funny.
Yeah, and I think this is where a lot of the comic relief for this movie comes in, right? And it's not. I felt like this movie was actually pretty balanced on its comedy. It wasn't trying to force stuff. We talked about Phantom Menace. If you guys missed that, go watch the video. And we talked about how some of the humor felt a little bit forced, so felt a little bit silly. I felt like this was very kind of. It was what I would describe as like
It was almost
quintessentially
like, yeah,
British humor, like that
I was about
dry
to say
sense of
it.
humor.
Yeah, it was very much that I think the way it was written makes it funny, and the tone of voice makes it funny. It's not necessarily actually jokes that are being told, it's just the quickness of the cast, the quips that are going on. And I think a lot of that came from the script. I thought the droid character, K2SO, was actually a really good character.
Yeah,
Um,
and really interesting because obviously it's an Imperial droid that we've not seen much about. Kind of we've seen this, been kind of hacked, had their programming changed type thing, which is not only clever from a tactical advantage that you've got essentially somebody from the enemy that you've turned to your side, but yeah, just the opportunities that brought from kind of the whole, you know, not really caring about humans, but still working hand in hand with humans. Like, I just thought it was really clever, to be honest.
yeah, no, absolutely. And while we're on the subject of characters, it was really good in one way, but it also brings up like these kind of moral dilemmas that we're reintroduced to Grand Moff Tarkin from the original A New Hope, who actually features heavily in this. So the editors have brought Peter Cushing back to life. Um, Now we know this was later done for Princess Leia in Rise of Skywalker. I believe she was CGI'd into a couple of scenes. Rise of Skywalker, Carrie Fisher was. But I have to say, this looked really good. Um, Tarkin looked realistic. Um, so it just showed, I mean, how technology has moved on. And his character, it's interesting that he's not like the main architect behind the Death Star. It's this director Krennic, who features quite heavily, and then Moff Tarkin basically takes it over. But you just get that Peter Cushing, obviously in A New Hope, just oozes just evil. And we've seen a bit more of Tarkin from the Clone Wars series and how evil he actually is. But besides Vader, he is like the Emperor's top admiral. The most trusted. And
Well, I think at this point in the timeline, Vader technically reports to him. Like, he is actually ranked within the Empire higher than Vader, um, because he is during A New Hope, right? Like, that's the whole point.
yeah, and it's interesting as well. They talk about how they don't want news of the Death Star to get out because the Senate will have a problem with it. Like, so it's obviously the Emperor still has to play politics. That's what I like. Obviously, A New Hope starts off with the Senate's no longer a problem. The Emperor's dissolved it. We're going to have regional governors, all of that. But at this point, a few weeks before A New Hope, the Senate is like, right, we can't let the Senate find out because more systems will join the alliance. It's almost harking back to Republic and Separatist times. Um, because you always assume the alliance is like really secret and everyone in the Senate just falls in line, but clearly that is not the case. Um, and then, of course, I mean, we do see Vader. I mean, we don't get loads of Vader, but what was really awesome was seeing I mean, this scene. Anyone, watching on YouTube, it's one of the best scenes in all of Star Wars when Vader is in the hallway. Um, just you hear the breathing, and then it's dark, and the red lightsaber comes out. It's incredible. But I like that we see Vader's palace on Mustafar. I just think little snippets like that as a Star Wars fan, I'm like, oh, that's just such a good reference.
Do you know what was huge for me with this? Was the fact that obviously you said at the very start about how this leads directly into A New Hope. And obviously it literally leads into this ends, and you could pretty much stitch the final scene of this with the opening scene of A New Hope after the text has rolled, and it like makes perfect sense. But what I love about this is when you first watch A New Hope, right? They storm the Tantive. They're on there, and Vader's like interrogating the rebels and stuff, and he's like, "Where are the Death Star plans?" And the guy's like, "No, we're like a democratic
I was literally just
like
about to make the
like
same. We're on a diplomatic mission to
yeah."
Alderaan.
So like all of that stuff, right? And Vader's like, "Nah, not having any of it." Like doesn't believe them at all. And in your head you're going, what's this guy's problem? Like why does he assume that they're lying? And then you watch this and you're like, that guy had the audacity to go, he has first hand just watched us do this. And I've just gone, don't know what you're talking about. Don't know what you're talking about. Like, no idea. Nah. Like it just
Vader doubt himself. Like Vader's then like, did I see them have the Death Star plans?
Was
But
I dreaming?
He literally sees the guy at the end of Rogue One, like, take it, when the door doesn't open all the way, and then get killed. So they're all like, it's like pass the parcel with the Death Star plans.
So for me, that's what I loved about this, was that, and I don't know if this was deliberate or not. Obviously, it was deliberate to have them feed straight into each other, but I'd never really thought that was a massive issue with A New Hope. As somebody that's watched it hundreds of times, like there was always a part of me that was like, this guy's just like a little bit grumpy, got up on the wrong side of the bed, like, but he's evil, like he's the villain, so of course he's not necessarily gonna be like super logical about everything that he does. But for me, this like fixed a problem that I don't think people even realized existed by adding that extra context. And the other thing that I loved about this scene was just the fact that in A New Hope you see Vader and you kind of get him and Obi-Wan have this quite lackluster.
You don't realize how powerful he is.
No,
You're
they
like,
have this really
robot
kind of
who can't really.
They have this really lackluster like lightsaber battle, and that's about it. And obviously that ramps up through some of the movies, but it's never at the sort of same level as the Obi-Wan Anakin fight. You know, this was like a proper. Oh, now I see why people are terrified of this guy. Like why the rebellion is like fears this guy.
Exactly. I just think the scene in the hallway is just incredible, and like it was nice because it showed the power of Darth Vader. I think that's one thing that Star Wars, even in The Empire Strikes Back and Return of the Jedi, we don't really see how powerful Vader is. But you think he's going to have been like in wars where if the Empire was struggling somewhere, he'd be sent to, sort it all out. So, we can't forget that he is actually a very, very powerful Sith. I mean, for me, the other thing I want to talk about, just speaking about A New Hope, is we get a couple of Easter eggs of characters. So it's nice that the red team leader is the red team leader in the X-Wings from the original A New Hope, and we just get him for like a few seconds. But we also get, and this is something I noticed today when I rewatched the film, I didn't notice it the first time, is we get, and I spoke to you off camera, Matt, and I said, he's the ugly guy from A New Hope who has a problem with Luke in the Mos Eisley Cantina. And you found out, what's his name?
Cornelius Everan.
Yeah, and he's a doctor.
Yeah.
I want to know if that's a PhD in something. If he's a medical science doctor.
You'd be worried
Dave
if it was.
Can you answer that for us?
You'd be worried if it was a medical doctor and he hadn't fixed that nose, eh?
Exactly. Maybe he was a plastic surgeon and it all went wrong when he performed on himself.
All went wrong.
And he's next to the bull bag alien.
No, but I do. I've enjoyed this movie much more now, and I said at the start, for me, didn't really enjoy it first round. I've probably watched it 5-6 times since that first watching, and every single time I kind of find myself enjoying it more. And it's really multi-layered is probably the best way to describe it. I think this was just so well done. The production team and the writers and everyone obviously knew what they were doing. Um, the Easter eggs, like you've said, are great. One of the Easter eggs that I loved that was even more kind of outside the box than some of these where they're like character nods and stuff was the whole concept of the wills, which is the whole I can't think of the character's name, the guy that does the I'm one with the force is with me stuff.
Oh, the blind guy. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
So he's supposed to be a member of the wills, and like WHILS or I don't know if it's one L or two L's. And that is a massive nod back to when George Lucas first wrote Star Wars. There were these. It was like the order of the wills were basically, it's like that's what the Jedi were, and it was that was like one of the main themes that ran through the first kind of draft of the screenplay.
Oh,
So they kind of took that concept because obviously he's not a Jedi, but you've got to think he's probably got some force ability based on some of the stuff that he does, considering he's got no sight and everything.
yeah,
And so that whole character and that whole setup was this massive kind of Easter egg nod to George Lucas's first treatment for the Star Wars script.
yeah. I like that. I like also as well that the character Saw Gerrera, this wasn't the first time that we'd been introduced to him. So he did appear, for those who'd watched Clone Wars before this, he was introduced in 2012 in an episode of Clone Wars on his home planet of Onderon, not to be confused with Alderaan. They must be next door neighbours. Um, and then we see him obviously a lot older at this point, and he kind of gives himself up as like, obviously when Jeddah is hit by the Death Star, and he's not in Jeddah, but he's outside. It's like the earthquake, the shock from it all comes on, and he has the chance to escape but doesn't. And I feel like there's obviously that's an untapped reserve, isn't it, Saw Gerrera, that he's in Fallen Order again, the game. So we've got an appearance there. There's a lot
Rebels.
more to him
It's in
than
Rebels.
meets the eye, and he's in Rebels as well. I wonder whether he's going to be in that Andor um, series, because that must be set. Because obviously, spoiler alert: Cassian Andor dies at the end of Rogue One. So clearly, this Andor series is set before. Maybe we're going to see a bit more of Saw Gerrera. Because
Maybe.
he was a pretty cool character, but it was very. I feel like he was quite understated.
Yeah, I think for me his appearance in this movie alone was a bit of a weird one because there was
Mm.
so much kind of emphasis put on him. We didn't really know much
Yeah,
about
there's so
him.
much they could have done with it.
Yeah, and his character was a bit like here, there, all over the place, which is obviously supposed to tell into like his mental state and kind of everything that he's been through and stuff. So I totally get that, and I get that that was a deliberate decision. For me, it just missed the mark a little bit. I found it a little bit difficult to kind of to follow. But then
I
when
feel
they've
like I
fleshed it out,
understand
it
they
makes
couldn't
a
have
bit
made
more
him.
sense.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. The more we've seen of him, it does make sense. I feel like they probably couldn't have made him too big a character because then it's like, well, why wasn't he in A New Hope? Why wasn't he at Yavin 4? Like,
Which is
they've
always
made him
going to
this kind of
be,
outcast character.
and that's always going to be the problem when you write a movie that's set kind of
Yeah,
before or between. It's the same issue that they had with Ahsoka during the Clone Wars
yeah,
series, knowing that there was
yeah,
no
absolutely.
reference to her in Revenge
Yeah,
of the Sith or anything. Um, but no, like I enjoyed it, and I thought Saw was all right. It was nice to see him in a few other things. My
yeah.
one issue watching it the first time round, and this is why I think I've needed to watch it a few times and it's grown on me every time I watched it, is the first time I watched it I found it difficult to get invested because I was like, well, they obviously all die, don't they? Because like none of them are in like A New Hope.
As the line says, many Bothans died.
Yeah,
I
even though
believe
they
is
didn't
the connection.
spot a single Bothan on that mission, but hey,
I know, I know.
whatever, Mon Mothma spreading your rebel propaganda.
Yeah, terrorist,
um,
terrorist lies.
but no, for me, I think kind of as we always do with this, we give it a score, we kind of summarize, and come back to our thoughts. For me, this is a grower. I think it was difficult to get invested, but actually there's some decent characters. The production team knew what they were doing. It's I know he wasn't involved, but it screams of Filoni. It screams of somebody that knows about Star Wars and knows kind of, you know, the history and not just the history of the in-universe stuff, but all of the stuff that goes on in the background with,
All those little Easter egg things. Yeah, I really liked it.
you
Yeah.
know, and it did, like you said, it really had the feel of the same era of A New Hope, but with the modern technology that comes with modern day filmmaking.
Yeah,
Um,
I think it was one of those that Rogue One is a film, and we've kind of already touched on this, but as a Star Wars fan who's seen the expanded universe, you know, all the other this TV series and all that, you knew it was Star Wars because of all these little Easter eggs and everything that's going on. As a as of someone who just watches it as a standalone movie, you'd be like, this is just a really cool movie. You know, forget about the Easter eggs. It just had everything.
I agree. I agree. I think for me personally, if we had been doing this scoring after our first watching, um, I probably would have been giving it like 5 or 6. I'll be honest. I think, yeah, I know. I think now looking back at it, I'd probably give it an 8. Like, yeah, I think it's solid. I think it's good. Um, I'm a sucker for like give me a lightsaber fight and I'm happy. Um, but I see where it's got its merits massively.
Okay,
He disagrees.
are you finished?
We're about to have an argument.
Well, I feel like you said it's a grower. I think it's a shower. I think it is a 9 out of 10. I I really like it, and you know what? I like at the end when good old Jimmy Schmidt, who plays Bail Organa, Mon Mothma just randomly comes up to him, and I feel like, have you been, shouting to your rebel friends about Obi-Wan? Mon Mothma's like, what about your friend the Jedi? And Bail Organa's like, yeah, he served me well in the Clone Wars. He didn't serve you. He served the Republic. Um, but he's like, I'll send for him. And Mon Mothma's like, you better trust the person who you're sending. He's like, I trust her with my life. Um, yeah, I'll give it a 9 out of 10. It's not a perfect 10 out of 10. It's no, I'm a big believer in you can't really give 10 out of 10s
Always
to
room for
anything
improvement. Always room for
except
improvement.
Revenge of the Sith.
Yeah, yeah, massively.
Um, that's the only one that gets 10 out of 10. Spoiler alert. But yeah, this one's a solid 9. I do really like it. I just yeah.
I think if I hadn't had such a
What more
bad
can I say?
like a bad experience with it first time round, it probably would have scored higher anyway.
I had a bad experience with it the first time.
You weren't there. You weren't there, man. You don't know. um,
I
no,
like
but
it as well. I like it as well. It reminds me of the Family Guy bit when they obviously because the film's Rogue One and everyone's like, well, what does that mean? Like, and they're like, what's your call sign? We need your call sign. And the pilot, the like really nervous, anxious pilot that's defected is like, Rogue, uh, Rogue One, and you're like, ah, he said it. It's like the Leonardo DiCaprio meme there.
yeah. No,
Like,
yeah, sure, mate. You give it a 9, I give it an 8. We'll agree to disagree. We'll both put it down that end of the scale.
yeah, better than a five
What
or
did you
six you
guys
said the
think?
original time.
Let us know.
I bet people thought that it was better than a 5 or 6. Put
Well,
it that way.
we will find out in the comments down below, won't we? I'm waiting. Please, everyone, spam 1 out of 10 in the comments. No, thank you guys for all your support. As always, if you've made it to this part of the video, thank you so much because we've been ranting, raving, waffling, doing what we usually do. And you were only really here for the scores. So there you go. But let us know if you've enjoyed it. Like the video, and please feel free to subscribe. We're trying to. We're on the way. We're on the way to 100. We're on the campaign.
We sure are.
Let's get there. So thank you very much, and yeah, keep your eyes peeled for the next video that'll be up real soon, and we'll see you guys in the next one.
May the force be with you all.